Right, kudos. One of the things I was excited about Nanado's presidency when he was the opposition leader run up to the 2016 election was the 1D 1F policy as an economic instrument to create jobs. And especially when I heard Nanado a few days to the election, he spoke very confidently about how they have identified over 270 or over 300, something like that, projects across the length and breadth of the country that beyond Bekobia, there's something that they can add value to it to be very successful and create jobs. And the marketing arrangements as well has been well documented. So when you hear somebody saying something like this, someone potential president of Ghana, you immediately have the inclination that government is going to be the leading facilitator of these projects because you don't identify projects or business opportunities and have the marketing arrangement fully documented if you don't intend to go into that business yourself. So I was hoping that government, as NPP government, was ready to inject a lot of capital to create these industries, critical industries, that will be like huge enterprises that will create a lot of value chain business opportunities for local capitalists like Ghanaians who want to start up their own business, right? And then they'll feed into these critical huge industries that the government has created. So, in principle, I have always been 110% for 1D, 1F, just like free SHS. But the problem I have is the execution. The issues are very fundamental, and the fundamental issues, especially with the 1D, 1F, is the fact that government has not thought through it properly, that ideologically they have restricted themselves to create the critical state owned enterprises that would have actually made the 1D, 1F policy a formidable success. If you look at the Chinese model, right, when the Chinese decided to create wealth as a government, they actually had a government that is being run like a huge global enterprise, like a business enterprise. And they created local capitalists for over 2.5 decades, about 25 years from 1980 to probably 2004, 5, 6 there, until they began to liberalize the economy a little bit. But even then, they had created enough local capitalists and given them access to funds so that they can feed into the huge enterprises that the Chinese government has created and gradually allow private sector to come in whilst government put in place the needed regulations so that government is still in control of how businesses run in China. When you have a government that's all over the place, want to initiate 1D, 1F, and then looking up to the private sector to take the leading role, it's going to fail. Government can create a lot of jobs that the private sector cannot create, number one, because the private sector goes into any business with the first principle that they're gonna make a lot of money. they they minimize the number of years they want to just break even. Unlike government, state-owned enterprises, critical sectors, huge industries, government can decide to break even for even 10 years and employ a lot of people, and government profit will be the income tax receipts that will be coming in. So it's win-win. You create a lot of jobs for the teeming youth that are unemployed. You know, the number is so skyrocketing. The unemployed youth in Ghana is so massive that if government can do this very well, would look at how much government has borrowed in 4 years going to 5 years, over $40 billion. If half of that money has gone into 1D1F to create jobs across the length and breadth of Ghana, there's so much that can be done. Building state-owned enterprises to facilitate creating jobs in Ghana. We need a national development plan. And if you look everywhere, the biggest funding facilitator is government. And the biggest job creation conduit or employer can be government, because we have so much that can be done. Look at sanitation. Do you know how much jobs government can create in just sanitation, recycling of waste? And it's only government that can create that state-owned enterprise to do that. And it demands and it requires a lot of planning and a lot of long-term planning as a nation, that we have to plan this very well to create jobs for our teeming youth. Massive unemployed youth in Ghana. Another area is same to do with waste management and sanitation, is like sewage systems in Ghana. How much jobs can be created in that value chain? Another one is what? The housing deficit. If government is actually reviving state housing corporation, not the one that we have there right now, that is building houses on demand. Just like going back to what Nkrumah did with Tema. Today, the situation is even more dying than Nkrumah's time. We have a housing deficit of, you're talking about 2 million, but I think it's close to 3 to 4 million, right? It's in that range. It's more reasonably in that range. So we have so much potential to create a lot of jobs through 1D1F. And I think what is really the bottleneck for Ekufuado is the boxing themselves in some ideological nonsense, as they are private sector driven. They don't believe in state owned enterprises crap. No developing country can take off without going through state owned enterprises in huge sectors, in critical sectors. They all did it. The Japanese did that. The United Kingdom did that. Even America did that, right? They all did that. Germany, Italy, they all did that. When they were taking off, the government took initiative to create huge, critical, state owned enterprises to create a lot of jobs. And then, after takeoff, when they were in cruise control, they allowed the private sector to come in. By then, they've created a lot of local capitalists, or government has actually made a lot of profit to be able to have facilities in place to give a lot of access to credit policies and cheap ones as well, so that new local capitalists or entrepreneurs that are coming up can actually feed into that. And see, we, in principle, 1D1 a brilliant policy. Execution, it hasn't been that well executed because the MPP has boxed itself in an ideological nonsense that they're waiting for the private sector to take the leading role, which private investors don't want to invest in places that they cannot maximize their profit. But government can afford to do that just to create jobs and even break even. Government doesn't mind because government profit, like I'm saying, will definitely come from income tax receipts. So well done, but still you need to do more. You need to do more. Government must invest in 1D1F. That's the only way out.